Have you ever eaten leftovers? Perhaps from a delicious meal you cooked the day before, and then found yourself feeling a little off. Maybe a rumbling stomach, an unexpected queasiness, or just a general feeling of not quite right. It's a common experience, and often we just shrug it off, thinking it was something else, or maybe just our sensitive stomach. But what if I told you that sometimes those uncomfortable feelings, or even worse, a serious bout of food poisoning that lands you in bed, or even the emergency room, could be entirely preventable? It's not always about how fresh the food was when you first cooked it, but surprisingly often, it's about how you handle it after it's cooked, especially when it comes to reheating. There's a silent culprit lurking in our kitchens, an invisible risk that many of us, especially as we get a little older, might not be fully aware of. We've grown up with certain habits, perhaps learned from our parents, or simply through trial and error. But the science of food safety has evolved. Some foods, when reheated, can actually become quite dangerous, turning a perfectly wholesome meal into a source of unwelcome bacteria. But on the flip side, there are other foods that absolutely must be reheated to a specific temperature to ensure they're safe to eat again. In this video, we're going to dive into this crucial topic, exploring 3 common foods you should absolutely never reheat if you want to avoid a nasty surprise. And then we'll turn our attention to 3 other foods that you must reheat properly to keep yourself safe and sound. It's vital information that could save you a lot of discomfort, and frankly, a good deal of worry. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll have a whole new perspective on your leftovers. And I promise you, there's something important coming towards the very end that might just surprise you. Now, let's talk about those foods that, for your own good, you really should think twice about putting back in the microwave or on the stovetop once they've been cooked and cooled. These aren't just old wives' tales. These are based on real science about how bacteria behave. And understanding them can make a huge difference to your everyday health. First up on our list of foods you should never reheat is rice. Ooh, yes, you heard me right. Plain old rice. It might sound surprising because rice is such a staple in so many homes, and we all have leftover rice from a curry or a stir-fry, don't we? The danger with rice isn't actually in the reheating itself, but in how the rice is handled after it's cooked. Uncooked rice often contains spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. These spores can survive even when the rice is cooked, if the cooked rice is then left to cool slowly at room temperature. These spores can multiply and produce toxins. And here's the tricky part. These toxins can't be destroyed by reheating. So, even if you heat the rice up piping hot, the toxins might still be there, and they can cause vomiting or diarrhea. It's a very common cause of food poisoning, and one that's often overlooked. Imagine you've made a lovely big batch of rice for dinner, and there's a good portion left over. The natural thing to do is just leave it on the counter for a bit while you finish up, then pop it in the fridge later. But that window, that time at room temperature, is exactly where the problem lies. To keep rice safe, if you're going to eat it later, you need to cool it as quickly as possible, ideally within 1 hour of cooking, and then get it into the fridge. Once it's been properly chilled, you can reheat it once, very thoroughly, making sure it's steaming hot all the way through. But honestly, the safest bet for seniors, whose immune systems might be a little less robust, is to simply cook only what you need. Or if you do have leftovers, enjoy them cold in a salad right away, or just be incredibly diligent about that rapid cooling. When in doubt, it's far better to simply discard it. Your peace of mind and your tummy will thank you. Moving on to our second food you should never reheat. We have cooked chicken or other poultry. Moise, think about that delicious roast chicken dinner, or perhaps some leftover chicken breast from a salad. While it's tempting to warm it up for another meal, cooked chicken can become a real breeding ground for harmful bacteria like Salmonella and Campylobacter if it's not handled correctly after its initial cooking. The problem often arises when chicken isn't reheated thoroughly and evenly. Chicken is a dense protein, and microwaves, for example, can heat unevenly, leaving cold spots where bacteria can thrive if you bite into a piece of chicken that's still cool in the middle. You're essentially inviting trouble. Picture this: you've got a busy afternoon, and you decide to quickly warm up some leftover chicken from yesterday. You pop it in the microwave for a minute or two, thinking that's enough. But that minute or two might not be enough to get the internal temperature up to a safe level, which, for reheated foods, usually means piping hot, 165 degrees Fahrenheit, all the way through, even if you manage to hit that temperature. The very act of reheating can sometimes change the protein structure of chicken, making it harder for your body to digest, which can lead to an upset stomach. For seniors, digestive issues are already a concern for many, and adding unnecessary strain or risk is something we want to avoid. So, if you have leftover cooked chicken, it's generally safer to eat it cold in a sandwich, chop it into a salad, or make sure if you must reheat it, you do so incredibly carefully, ensuring it's steaming hot and consumed immediately, and only reheating it once. But truly, for peace of mind, consider it a one-time hot meal, or a fantastic cold addition to another dish. And now, for our third, and often surprising, food you should think twice about reheating. Potatoes. Specifically, cooked potatoes that have been left to cool slowly at room temperature, especially when wrapped tightly, like in foil. Potatoes, particularly baked potatoes, can be a host for Clostridium botulinum, the bacteria responsible for botulism, a very serious form of food poisoning. These spores thrive in anaerobic conditions, meaning without oxygen, and at room temperature. A warm, moist environment, like a baked potato left cooling on the counter in its foil wrapper, is just perfect for them to grow and produce toxins. It's an easy mistake to make, isn't it? You finish dinner, wrap up the leftover baked potatoes, and leave them on the counter to cool down completely before putting them in the fridge. But that's exactly where the risk builds. Unlike some other bacteria, the toxins produced by Clostridium botulinum are incredibly potent and are not destroyed by typical reheating temperatures. So, even if you pop that potato in the microwave until it's hot, the danger could still be there. This is why it's always recommended to remove cooked potatoes from any foil or airtight containers as soon as possible. Cool them rapidly, and refrigerate them promptly. Better yet, only cook the number of potatoes you plan to eat. If you do have leftovers, and they were handled perfectly, then reheating them thoroughly is the key. But if there's any doubt about how long they sat out or how they were cooled, it's simply not worth the risk. It's far safer to err on the side of caution when it comes to potatoes, because the consequences can be much more severe than just a mild tummy ache. So, when you think about rice, chicken, and potatoes, remember these pointers. It's all about preventing those invisible threats from making you feel unwell. Now that we've discussed these three important foods you should never reheat, let's turn our attention to the flip side. Those dishes that actually must be reheated properly for your safety and enjoyment. All right, we've talked about the foods where caution is your best friend when it comes to reheating. But now, let's shift our focus to the other side of the coin. The foods that you absolutely must reheat to ensure they are safe and enjoyable to eat. These are the dishes where a thorough, proper reheating isn't just a suggestion. It's a vital step in preventing foodborne illness. First on our list of foods you must reheat thoroughly are leftover stews, soups, and casseroles, especially those containing meat, poultry, or vegetables mixed together. Now, think about that comforting beef stew, a hearty chicken noodle soup, or a layered vegetable casserole you made a day or two ago. These dishes are often cooked in large batches, designed for leftovers, and they're wonderful time savers. However, because they contain a mix of ingredients, proteins, vegetables, and often a broth or sauce, they become an ideal environment for bacteria to multiply if they're not cooled quickly and reheated thoroughly. When you cook a stew or soup, the heat kills most bacteria, but as it cools, any surviving spores or new bacteria introduced from the air or utensils can start to multiply, particularly in the danger zone of temperatures between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly room temperature. to counteract this. When you're planning to enjoy that leftover stew, you must bring it to a rolling boil for at least a minute. This isn't just about making it warm. It's about ensuring every part of that dish reaches a safe temperature, usually 165 degrees Fahrenheit. To kill off any unwelcome guests that might have settled in, stir it well while reheating to make sure the heat distributes evenly, especially if you're using a microwave. There's nothing worse than a piping hot edge and a lukewarm center when it comes to food safety. The steam should be rising vigorously from all parts of the dish, and once it's reheated, it needs to be eaten immediately. Don't put it back in the fridge to reheat again later. For these types of dishes, careful cooling, dividing large portions into smaller, shallow containers to cool quickly in the fridge, and then a robust reheat are your absolute best friends for staying healthy. Next up, a category that absolutely requires proper reheating for your safety. Dishes that contain meat, fish, or eggs, like curries, quiches, or any prepared dish with these as main ingredients. These foods are packed with protein and moisture, making them highly susceptible to bacterial growth if they're not kept at safe temperatures. We're talking about things like that lovely salmon fillet you had for dinner, or the delicious egg and cheese quiche from Sunday brunch. While some people might risk eating cold-cooked meat, when it comes to reheating, there's no room for shortcuts. The concern here is similar to that with chicken, but it applies more broadly to all high-protein foods. Bacteria like Listeria or Salmonella love these environments, and if they've had a chance to grow during cooling or storage, only a high heat will eliminate them. So, whether it's a leftover chicken curry, a piece of baked fish, or a slice of quiche, it needs to be reheated until it's piping hot all the way through. This means steaming hot, not just warm. If you're using a microwave, always stir the curry or rotate the quiche halfway through and check the temperature in several spots to make sure there are no cold areas. If you're reheating in an oven, ensure it's heated thoroughly and check the internal temperature if you have a food thermometer. For fish, sometimes reheating can dry it out, so adding a little liquid or reheating gently in an oven covered with foil can help maintain moisture while still ensuring safety. The bottom line is, if it has meat, fish, or eggs, and it's been cooked and cooled, assume it needs a proper thorough reheating before you take another bite. Your digestive system will thank you for being so careful. And finally, the third category of foods you must reheat properly are cooked grains or pasta dishes that are combined with sauces, meats, or vegetables. While plain, leftover pasta or rice might sometimes be eaten cold in a salad if handled very carefully, as we discussed with plain rice. Once you introduce sauces, especially creamy ones, or meats, or even just a medley of vegetables into the mix, the rules change considerably. Think about that creamy pasta bake, a classic spaghetti bolognese, or a mixed grain salad with chicken and dressing that you've saved for later. These combined dishes create a complex environment where different types of bacteria can flourish. The sauces, particularly those with dairy or tomato bases, can provide nutrients for bacterial growth, and any meat or vegetables add to the risk. Reheating these dishes isn't just about making them palatable. It's about making them safe. You need to ensure the entire dish reaches that critical safe temperature, steaming hot, to kill off any bacteria that might have grown since it was first cooked. For pasta dishes, stirring frequently while reheating, especially on the stovetop or in the microwave, ensures that the heat distributes evenly. For grains like couscous or quinoa that have been mixed with other ingredients, a thorough reheat until steaming is also essential. Remember, the goal is not just to warm it up, but to ensure it's hot enough to eliminate any potential health risks. If in doubt, a food thermometer should read 165 degrees Fahrenheit in the thickest part of the food. These dishes are often so delicious as leftovers, but that deliciousness should never come at the expense of your well-being. So, for stews and soups, dishes with meat, fish or eggs, and complex grain or pasta dishes, remember that proper reheating is your golden rule. It's all about enjoying your food without any worries. Now that we've covered both the foods to avoid reheating and the ones you must reheat properly, let's wrap things up with some final thoughts and a very important message for you. We've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? It's truly amazing how much difference a few simple practices around our everyday food can make to our health and comfort. We talked about those 3 foods that you should be very, very careful with when it comes to reheating rice, especially when it hasn't been cooled quickly. Cooked chicken and poultry, where uneven heating can be a real risk, and those innocent-looking potatoes, particularly when they've been wrapped up tight and left to linger. These are the ones where a moment of carelessness could lead to a really unpleasant time. So erring on the side of caution or just enjoying them cold is often the smartest choice. Then, we explored the other side of the coin, the foods you absolutely must reheat properly, thoroughly, and evenly to ensure they're safe. We looked at those comforting stews, soups, and casseroles that are so perfect for batch cooking, emphasizing the need to bring them to a rolling boil. We also discussed dishes rich in meat, fish, or eggs, like curries and quiches, where reaching that piping hot temperature all the way through is non-negotiable. And finally, we touched on those delicious combined grain and pasta dishes, where all the ingredients mixed together mean diligent reheating is key to keeping you healthy. Remember, the main takeaway here isn't to be afraid of your kitchen or your leftovers. Not at all. It's about being informed and empowered. It's about understanding that food safety isn't just for restaurants. It's for our own homes too, especially as we age and our bodies might be a little less resilient to bugs. Small, consistent changes in how you handle your food, like rapid cooling, storing properly in the fridge, and ensuring a thorough, steaming hot reheat can make an enormous difference. It can save you from uncomfortable stomach upsets, protect you from more serious foodborne illnesses, and ultimately, give you peace of mind every time you sit down to eat. Taking care of ourselves, especially through something as fundamental as what we eat and how we prepare it, is one of the greatest acts of self-love we can engage in. It's not about being perfect. It's about being mindful. It's about knowing that you're doing your best to nourish your body safely, allowing you to focus on all the wonderful things life has to offer. These simple adjustments can contribute so much to your overall well-being, helping you feel energetic, vibrant, and ready for whatever each new day brings. I truly hope this conversation has been helpful, perhaps shedding light on some things you hadn't considered before. And I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had an experience with a food that didn't agree with you after reheating? Or perhaps you have your own tried and true methods for safely handling leftovers. Please share your thoughts, your tips, and your experiences in the comments section below. Your insights are invaluable and could help countless others in our wonderful community. And if you found this video useful, if it gave you something new to think about, please do give it a big thumbs up. That like button really helps us reach more people who could benefit from this information. And, of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already by subscribing. You'll join our growing family and ensure you don't miss out on future videos packed with practical advice and uplifting messages designed just for you. You deserve to feel your best every single day. Taking these small, conscious steps in the kitchen is one fantastic way to ensure your golden years are truly golden, filled with health, happiness, and delicious. Save meals. Thank you so much for watching, for spending this time with me. Live your best life at every age.